This is a momentous edition of the Spring Nuts Cafe. I cannot even begin to express our honor and gratitude for our guest tonight. This man needs no introduction, but hey, when has anyone ever stopped the warden from yapping? So yap I will. He is, one second, he is the founding member of Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. He founded the amazing band known as the Disciples of Soul. He is the founding member of the legendary E Street Band. He is a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, architect of the Jersey Shore rock sound, founder of the Artists United Against Apartheid, writer of one of rock's greatest protest songs, Sun City, creator of the Underground Garage and a major champion of new rock artists, creator of Wicked Cool Records, iconic character Silvio Dante on The Sopranos, and creator, star, producer of Lilyhammer. And Lilyhammer was Netflix's first original programming series, making this gentleman part of an important moment in television history. Author of the amazing biography Unrecorded Infatuations, major accomplishment in his illustrious career, as we know, as this man came up with the Funky Mofos named Anthony, Ozzy, and Curtis. Entrepreneur of the oh so delicious Malvado Maple Mezcal, which I've had many drinks tonight before I came on the show. And most recently, Stevie and his wonderful and beautiful wife, Maureen, just received the highly acclaimed Spring Nut Rebel Heart of Rock and Soul Award at our Spring Nuts Serenade event this past May at the Stone Pony. Also, what? 1 second. There's more. The
Enough.
Okay.
Enough.
Nah, okay, 1 second. This is the best way. Yet, perhaps the most meaningful part of Stevie's legacy is not found in a record or a television show or an award for the Hall of Fame. It is found in the people he has inspired, the artists he has supported, the causes he has championed, the students he has reached, and the communities he has helped through Teach Rock. Okay, that is it. So, ladies and gentlemen, Spring Nuts of all ages, it's our honor and privilege to welcome to the Spring Nut Cafe a true rock and roll icon and one hell of a human being, Mr. Stevie Van Zandt. Welcome to the Spring Nut Cafe.
Woo! Nice to be here.
All right. As we begin, I'm going to hand it over to our moderator. First of all, Mr. Stan Goldstein, my lovely wife, Julie, and at the helm, Mr. Ryan Hilligoss. Ryan, take it away.
Steve, thank you for doing this. This is truly an honor and a privilege for me, so thank you for being here.
Pleasure.
I just want to say, we were talking about this earlier. We're close to 50 episodes of this, and so many different people that we've interviewed. All roads lead through Stephen Van Zandt, Bobby Mahoney on Wicked Cool Records, Jesse Malin, Mark Ribler was on, Jesse Wagner was on, you name it. Like, most of the people that we've had on here have some kind of connections with you. So the amount of people that you know that have worked with, you've helped promote, you've helped them as artists has been truly astounding.
Well, we all do what we can do,
If you don't mind, I'm going to read a little bit out of one of the first chapters of your book for just a moment to set up a question I have, if that's okay.
Sure.
I never want to steal another author's word, so I always ask permission before I go in on this.
Steal his book.
And yes, for those of you that are watching that haven't checked it out, so I got the book initially. I read it. It was fantastic. I think it's right up there with Born to Run and Dylan's Chronicles and like some of the top rock art autobiographies out there. So great writing. But for those of you that haven't, read the book. But if you really want to do yourself a favor, listen to the audiobook. It's in Stevie's voice. He's doing some impersonations from time to time. So if you haven't checked it out, do the audiobook. Do yourself a favor. All right. So from chapter 1, Epiphany, page 9. My first epiphany came at the age of 10 in 1961 in my room at 263 Wilson Avenue, New Monmouth, Middletown, New Jersey. during my 55th consecutive time listening to Pretty Little Angel Eyes by Curtis Lee. That's what we did in those days. A song on the radio would stop your life and start it up again. Talk about the perfect relationship completing you. When you were a kid in the 60s, the right song completed you. It made your day. Owning a great record wasn't optional. You had to have it. That meant convincing your mom to drive you into town, and then with great anticipation and reverence, entering the teenage church, temple, synagogue, sweat lodge, known as the record store. Mine was Jack's Record Shop in Red Bank, which had a music shop on the other side of the street. It's where I bought my first guitar a few years later, and still there, incredibly. The store was a beautifully constructed place of worship, as ornate and glorious as any European cathedral. I'd go through dozens of bins to find the record I'd heard on the radio, take it to the counter, and give the guy my hard-earned 79 cents. Then back at home, I'd listen to it over and over again until it became a physical part of me. I just love that description of what the music, what the records meant to you, the actual physical activity of putting it on a player and listening to it over and over again. So that's at the age of 10. So I guess my question is, as a lead into that, is your love of music. Did it come from your family? Did anybody in your family play instruments? Were they listening to music on the radio?
Not much, no. My father purportedly played trumpet once upon a time, but I never saw him do it. I know he had a trumpet in his room, but I never heard him play it. And he'd occasionally play a record or two, but not much. You know, it'd be like Arthur Prysock or that kind of thing. So no, it was not really a musical family at all. Just I was just a freak of nature.
Just
So
like the rest of us.
you were catching all this on the radio on your own. You're just flipping channels. You're listening to the radio on your own whim.
Yeah, it was all radio in the beginning. Other than really, other than the Ed Sullivan Show, the variety show Sunday nights, who would have a rock act, but the rock shows wouldn't begin until the British invasion hit in '64, and then for a minute there, 64, 65, into '66, we had like 10 rock and roll shows on every week. I mean, it's unbelievable. You could see rock and roll on 10 different shows, and it only lasted like a year and a half, 2 years. It seemed like longer, looking back on it now, but it was only about a year and a half. The Shindigs and Hullabaloos and all of them. So it did go to TV for a minute in the mid '60s, but it was all radio, man. In the beginning, it's all radio. That's why I've always had a special relationship with radio, and I think everybody does. I think it's a particularly unique medium. That voice coming out of the darkness, leaving a lot to your imagination. It's a little bit more of an active, a participatory type medium rather than TV, which it tends to be all you're receiving all of that information without really participating in it necessarily. But certain media, like books, books and radio tend to draw you in by not being completely, explained, a little bit of a mystery, and I think mystery is very important when it comes to art.
All right. So that leads me into my next question. One of the best days of my life was my dad was born in 1942, so he grew up in the 50s, so he loved all that original first generation rock and roll stuff. He loved Dion, and I got to take my dad to Cleveland to the Hall of Fame. Dave Marsh was doing an interview with Dion, and Dion showed a documentary that he had put together about what really happened on the night of the plane crash. So it was just a great night for me. Seeing Dion at the 250 Years of American Music was phenomenal for me personally. You obviously have had a relationship with Dion, so if you could just talk to us about how you met Dion, what your friendship has been like over the years, and most importantly, what is happening with The Wanderer.
Yeah. It was a very interesting first moment. I wrote about it in the book. I was playing on I was on the oldies circuit, what they call the oldies circuit, in that '73 period when the so-called oldies hit their peak. Suddenly there was this rush to um, of nostalgia about the '50s and early '60s, even though it was only whatever 10 years earlier. Things were moving so fast in those days that 10 years was a long time. Um, and you know, Richard Nader had his rock shows at the Garden. That's the first time I played the Garden. Um, and like Happy Days coming on TV, and it was the movie. Good time. I forget what it's called now, but there was all kinds of '50s type activities, and there was an oldie circuit, which you never would have known had you not been on it. But it was unfortunately that when the British invasion hit, they put all the heroes out of work,
Mm.
and it was really a real tragedy. For some reason, those guys just got shafted. Not only economically, but also in that regard of if they had two hits when the Beatles came, they played those two hits the rest of their lives, and they're in their mid 30s, early 40s. You know,
Mm.
um, for some reason that generation, not really easy to understand, but every generation after that grew, with the artists. Um, the biggest acts in the '60s were the Beatles and Stones, and the biggest acts right now are the Beatles and Stones. you know, I mean, it's amazing when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
60 years later, right? You know,
Mm.
but these cats, the cats who invented it, got put out to pasture.
Mm.
And so there was this oldie circuit where they played at hotels, they played Vegas, odd gigs that you wouldn't even have known about. And that lasted for a while. Maybe it may still be there, for whoever's left.
Mm.
But so I got on that oldie circuit in a bizarre way. I was working construction, and I broke my finger playing flag football on the weekend, and so to exercise my finger, it's still bent. Uh,
Mm.
to exercise my finger, I joined this band playing piano. I can only play, simple chords. Not really a piano player. And it just so happens it was the old mods. It was some leftover guys from the old mods, which were two of one of the three great local bands. You had the mods, the Click, and the Motifs.
Mm.
The Motifs were in Freehold. The Click were in Red Bank, and the mods were like in Rumson. And I knew I'd reached a certain peak in my craft when both the Click and the mods asked me to join the band. I was very thrilled about that. But later on, skipping a few years, anyway, there was a couple guys had another band, and I was playing piano, and it just so happened the drummer in that bar band was a cousin of one of the Dovells,
Hmm.
and the Dovells needed a new backup group, so he said, they're gonna be playing Vegas. Now, this was very exciting to me at the time because
Mm.
I was a bit of a gambling aficionado back then, and I knew the whole history of Vegas. I was also a mob aficionado, even then, and it was very exciting. So I joined that band, and it turned out to be this oldie circuit. So I met all of those pioneers. I met them all. That's when I first met Gary Bonds. Met Little Richard, and everyone. So it was an important step in my sort of education, and it just lasted like a year. Oh, so right. I didn't answer the question yet, did I? So I'm playing Vegas, and the Flamingo, by the way, was the Flamingo, which was
Mhm.
especially important in mob lore.
Mm.
You might know. Um, so I don't know, I'm talking with, I got along good with the lighting guy or the sound guy. I forget. So he says, "Yeah, you want to see something?" So he brings me all the way up to the top, the high balcony, and we're looking down, and suddenly I hear Robert Johnson. Now,
Wow.
Wow.
that's about the last place you expect, to
Huh.
hear Robert Johnson is the Flamingo Hotel in Las Vegas, right? You know,
Mm.
I'm like, am I hallucinating or what? I'm like, what's that? And he says, oh, Dion's doing a sound check. I'm like, that's Dion? Like Run Around Sue Dion? He's like, yeah. And so I went down and I was like, man, I didn't know you were into that. He said, oh yeah, man. And that was the basis of the beginning of our friendship. And he ended up by the tail end of that year, we ended the end of that year long sort of oldies thing in Miami New Year's Eve, where Dick Clark used to have his New Year's Eve show before he moved it to Times Square, and at the Deauville Hotel, ironically, which is probably where the Deauvilles got their name. And at that point, Dion wanted me to be in his band for the last couple of shows, so I was kind of doing both bands, and and we stayed friends ever since. And now they did a play. They wrote a play for him about his music and his life, which is just a great play, really good script. And so me and my wife and uh, Charles Messina, the writer, and Jill Menza are producing this thing, and just waiting for a theater to open up. There's 41 theaters in Broadway, and they're all full, and everyone has a line waiting to get in. It's amazing how well Broadway is doing. It's fascinating. But so that it's
Okay.
hopefully it'll get into a theater, and we cut a couple songs just for fun. One of them's the coolest song in the world this week, actually. It's basically based on Dion's life and music, and he has an interesting story. His story is a little bit more interesting than most. So it's not just a jukebox musical. It's some made up story. I mean, it's a really really interesting script.
Well, I hope it gets in soon, and I definitely will be coming back to watch it once it's in. So we're anxiously awaiting. My next question for you is kind of along those same lines. You've obviously worked with so many, you've got a deep love, appreciation to the point of actually wanting to be involved with them and working with them. You championed Darlene Love, got her first solo album, which is crazy. 60 years in, she gets her first solo album. You championed her to get into the Hall of Fame. Dino Danelli's in Disciples of Soul is your first drummer. Gary Bonds, obviously, Ronnie Spector, all these great artists from that first and second generation. I'm a huge Elvis person, so I guess my question to you is, if Elvis had survived and not passed away when he did, do you think you would have had some kind of interest in trying to work with him, kind of like you did with Gary?
um, I hate to say this, but I was never a big Elvis fan.
Okay, that's fine.
Me neither.
That's fine.
I appreciate his early stuff, and I like quite a few of his records now, but I was never a fan. I was strictly a band guy. You know, I did really no big interest in any individual, although I would appreciate what they contributed to rock history, obviously. But it was all bands for me, and Gary. I wouldn't have thought of Gary. Bruce thought of him. I mean, with all the singers. I mean, on that oldies circuit, I told the story 100 times, but I basically wrote the first song I ever liked that I wrote. I wrote "I Don't Want to Go Home" for Benny King and the Drifters. Didn't have the courage to give it to him, so Southside ended up with it.
Wow.
But um, why did I bring that up? Because
I was just asking about Elvis, and you said that Gary, Bruce had found Gary and kind of
right,
brought
right.
the interest
So
around.
right. So there's Benny King, and and Wilson Pickett even David Ruffin may have been still with us. I mean, there were so many phenomenal singers. I didn't understand, why Bruce had been attracted to record Gary. Gary, his records were classic, legendary party records. He invented the party record, but they sound like they're recorded in a garage, and there's not particularly any particularly interesting singing on them. It's just they're great for what they are. So I didn't get that, until I went in the studio, and all of a sudden, we start going through the songs, and because Bruce was like, he wrote a couple songs for him right away, and then he's like, well, now what? I said, well, let's have Gary do all the great writers. Let's have him do a Bob Dylan song. Let's have him do a Jackson Brown song. And so we started going through these other songs, and all of a sudden, Gary's voice revealed itself, to be one of the great R&B singers of all time. And I don't know, somehow Bruce knew it. He had gone to see him live. Maybe he kind of got it from the live show, but and Gary ended up being just a revelation to me. But I wouldn't have picked him. Darlene was another case because I had talked her into moving to New York. I happened to be in LA when she came out of retirement. It was just a lucky moment. We happened to be in LA. I don't know what we were doing. I think we're still mixing the river, even though I think Hungry Heart had come out. I mean, you guys would probably know better than me, but I think Hungry Heart had come out, I think, before we even finished mixing the river, I think. I don't know. Anyway, we're still in LA for some reason, and I remember Hungry Heart had come out. And I was there meeting one of my best friends at the time, this guy Elmer Valentine, and I come out of the Roxy Theater right next to the Rainbow, and it's still there, and I run into oh shit.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah, legendary cat, whose name I'm going to get in a minute. He produced the Mamas and Papas and the Dunhill Records.
Oh, Adler. Lou Adler.
Lou
Lou
Adler.
Adler. Yeah.
So I run into Lou, and Lou says, Stevie, I got something for you tonight. What do you got, Lou? Darlene loves coming out of retirement. Because she was the great mystery for us, sort of, history kind of fanatics, which we were starting to become. We're starting to become this kind of fanatical, as the past started to drift away, somehow our circle kind of became more attracted to it. It was an odd situation. I mean, epitomized, by Bruce putting a sax player in the band. Okay, after every sax player was put out of work by the British invasion, the fact that Bruce had a sax player was a statement, that was not hip, not trendy, could have been dangerously uncommercial because of that. But it was making a statement that there's something from the past that's relevant, and it can be brought into the future. It can be brought into the present and brought into the future, which Bruce, of course, did with Clarence. But anyway, so we started to become fanatics about the history, as we started to learn the history. And Darlene was one of those mysterious people that, she had been on three different names. She had been, sometimes she was the Crystals, and sometimes she's Bobby Sox and the Blue Jeans. And I mean, and this big mystery about the fight she had with Phil Spector, and then she disappeared, and nobody knew where she went. And suddenly she's coming out of retirement. I was like, holy shit, man, this is big. So I called Bruce. I said, Bruce, we're going to Roxy tonight. And I remember the set very distinctly because she played Hungry Heart that night, which was weird because it had just come out. Anyway, so we're talking after the show, and I said, Darlene, I don't know what you're gonna do in L.A. L.A. for older women, it's terrible, but you know, if you're over 17 in LA, your career's starting to go downhill already. I mean,
Mm.
this was just, that this the culture there was, completely superficial, based on, young beauty, and young period. And I said, man, I don't know what you're gonna do in LA, Darlene, but you should come to New York because we'll figure something out. New York still has, that kind of cultural integrity, that LA never had. I mean, those of us who know the history, of course, there are exceptions. Of course, there are, but it was never, it was never a cultural center. Only for that one moment in Laurel Canyon there, that Laurel Canyon moment, of course, and everything related to that. But that was a blip on the radar screen. That was unusual. Most of the crap was coming out of the Brill Building, and in New York, period. So I talked her into moving to New York, and then couldn't figure out what to do with her. I mean, nobody wanted to sign her. I mean, she's not going to fit in any category on the radio. And luckily, I got her some gigs, and she ended up doing a Broadway, off Broadway, and Broadway, and got the Die Hard movie, which was great, and managed to get some work and then finally Chris Columbus said he needed a song for a movie, and I said, oh, this is the perfect opportunity. I don't have to worry about radio. I don't have to worry about record company. I just need a great song that fits the scene that Chris wants. And I wrote All Alone on Christmas for Home
Home
Alone
Alone.
2, which was the first time I got a chance to actually work with her, which was years later.
Mm.
And then I go see her show every year, at the at B King, whatever. She do the Christmas show every year, and right after that, whatever, whenever it was, I'm sitting there with Maureen one night, and she went into one of her songs, the gospel song that we cut on the first album, and I was just like, I can't bear the thought of the world not hearing this woman. I can't live with it anymore. You know. So I said, Darlene, what are you doing tomorrow? After the show. She says, I don't know. What do you want to do? I said, we're making a record. So get the band, come in, and that was it. We made that. And I just started making phone calls again to the great writers. And I got, Elvis Costello sent me like 4 songs the next day. I mean, it was really amazing. Bruce had a couple. Cynthia Weil and Barry Mann, wrote something. Just everybody really came to the party, and so that again, it was a weird circumstance that I ended up working with individuals like that. And on the Gary Bonds record, of course, we used Benny King and we used Chuck Jackson, who were both phenomenal. We used them on the Gary Bonds album. I had used Lee Dorsey with Ronnie Spector for the Jukes. And yeah, we had reunited the Coasters and the Drifters and the Five Satins. So so you just and I started my record company with the intention of using the 60s producers and writers, of which there was still a lot of them around, with the new bands. I was going to combine the two and see what happened. And I don't know, I got sidetracked, and that really didn't happen very often, unfortunately. But I'm always trying to combine the old with the new and show the relevance of the old, because this generation, it's important to have that they have access to the greatest artists that ever lived. That's why I started the radio show.
Well, we appreciate you and your efforts in giving us and the world Darlene Love and Gary Bonds and the Rascals and everything else that you've worked on. My last question for you involves The Sopranos, which I know you've talked about 1,000 times, but I have a very specific question. Just on behalf of myself and all of us here, condolences to you and Vinny's family about his passing recently. We just wanted to acknowledge that. So we know that you were close friends with him, so we feel sorry for that. I'm slowly watching the series again, and I just happened to catch Mr. Ruggiero's Neighborhood the other night, which is this episode where the FBI gets a warrant to put a wiretap in the basement at the Soprano home, and there's like 5 times throughout the episode where there's a mashup between the Peter Gunn theme and I'll Be Watching You from the Police, and it was
Yeah.
just such a great mashup of those two songs to comedic effect, dramatic effect, and it just knocked me out. And the music in The Sopranos is like one of the reasons why it was so successful and so good, and the music was used in such a great way. So I guess my question to you is if you could just talk about the relationship between you and David Chase and just the music side of it.
Yeah, David loved doing that. If you asked him, that's his favorite thing. You know, you ask him, what's your favorite memory of Sopranos, or what did you like doing most? He's like, I love putting the songs in. You know, he just he's a real rock and roll fan. He had a band as a kid, which he did that. The movie Not Fade Away was, largely autobiographical. In fact, if you get a chance, please, they 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 did a black and white version of it, and I think it's on Criteria now. They run both of them, so you have to try and find the black and white version. But I ask you, please hunt down and watch the black and white version of Not Fade Away, which is
Okay.
what it should have been in black and white to begin with.
Hmm.
It's remarkably different. You know, I mean, when I first saw the movie, I said to David, I said, "This is more French New Wave than than Transformers 5." It's just not. This is it's going to be a tough road here. But I mean, but finally they did a black and white version, and man, I knew it was going to be better, but I didn't realize how much better it would be. Anyway, if you see that, you appreciate the film, and it's largely autobiographical. So he was a very musical cat from the very beginning. He almost went the music way, but ended up going to TV. And anyway, so once in a while, Dave will come to me and say, I need a new band. I need something new. Who do you got? So I would stick a band or two in when Andrea,
Oh,
when she had the club,
yeah, that was bad.
there'd be bands,
Indiana. Yeah.
um, there'd be bands occasionally. So we've got a couple of bands in, and a little bit of the new music now and then, but mostly David did that, himself,
Hmm.
and his wife Denise also, um, very tasteful, very knowledgeable. Denise would suggest songs now and then. I think she suggested the Kinks. Um, that great Kinks song. Um, uh, I
Give me
guess
a little more.
it,
A
it
little
was
more.
it was one of those things that was used as the score throughout the episode. I'll think of it in a minute, but I think Dave sang it actually. But anyway,
I'm not like anybody else. Is that
no,
it? Oh, Living on the Thin Line. Is
yes,
that it?
living
Living
on.
on.
Thank you. Yes.
Mhm.
Um, so anyway, but that was the music was, 99% David.
Got it. Thank you. Howie?
Yeah, so Steve, I'd like to ask a couple questions related to your work with Disciples and obviously the E Street Band, from your perspective. So there are musicians who can play every note perfectly, but could never sound like the E Street Band. And why is that? What is the secret ingredient that makes something sound so special like what the E Street Band does? What does the E Street Band make it different than anybody else?
Great, great bands have a mysterious element. Okay, there's a magical chemistry that takes place with great bands.
Mm.
You know, we can try and analyze it all day long,
Mm.
but that's why when there's a great band, you know, I was guilty of this myself, as
Mm.
you know. I tell people, man, keep that thing together, because
Mm.
there's something magical about it. You want to do solo records, go do solo records, but come back to that band. You know,
Mm.
go back and forth. Don't ever break up a great band. You know, I think back, you know, and you know you can see why it happened, but you think back to like the Faces, for instance. You know, the best example. They were phenomenal bands. I mean, they were
Mm.
right there with the Stones at,
Mm.
at the
Right.
time. You know,
Mhm.
and then, you know, Rod had the solo success, and then, you know, Ronnie, you know, got offered the Stones gig, and I guess it was just, you know, tough to maintain it, but even then they should have kept it together somehow, you know. Uh,
Mhm.
that's a very dramatic example of it, but so you know, you got individuals coming together that may not be obviously in sync with each other or from the same exact background. I mean, the ultimate example of it, of course, is the Who.
Mm.
You know, four guys who not only didn't seem to like each other very much,
Right.
but um, you know, performed on their instrument in a way that the instrument was not supposed to be played. You know,
Right.
I mean, you know what I mean? They kind of switched roles, and so it was a completely original, magical experience. And you know, anyway, so sometimes
Mhm.
the personalities, you know, if you got to get past the personality conflicts if you can. Usually, if you can stick together throughout the conflicts that are inevitable,
Mhm.
um, you know, you're going to be glad you did, because there's something magical that happens. I mean, you know, the Ramones, you know, Joey and Johnny didn't speak, as far as I
Right.
know, like the last 10 years
Hmm.
of their existence.
Mhm.
You know, Johnny had, you know, married, you know, Joey's girlfriend.
Right.
You know, and yet there they were, you know, uh, being the Ramones every night, and you know, communicating that thing, and never, you know, didn't speak, you know.
Shame.
Oh, you know, and that's a good example of the band being greater than the sum of its parts. Being bigger than the individuals, bigger than the individual conflicts, bigger than the differences in the personalities or anything else. Sometimes that magic, you know, and the Stones had some of that too. I think things are better now, but there's certainly been some rough times, you know,
Right.
between
Right.
Keith, you know, and they freely will talk about it, and but yet, you know, they stay together, and look what's happened now. The last two records are really, you know, great, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, so, you know, if you can hang together in spite of it all, I mean, if there's a certain, you got to respect that magic, and it's not, you can't take it for granted.
Absolutely. So I guess the follow-up to that is there a moment like in the E Street history when you felt the band went from being a really good rock band to becoming something truly special? When was that time? Did you feel that?
Um, well, the big step, I think, really the big step was um, Born to Run to Darkness. Really was
Mm.
the biggest moment when, you know, you kind of felt you were going from bar band to rock star. You know,
Right.
you know, you know what I mean. I mean, you know, that line got crossed there, and it was like, oh, we actually might make it. We might survive
Mm.
this. What I mean?
Mm.
You started
Mhm.
to think, you know, we got that incredibly important encouragement from Frank Barcelona, who
Mhm.
really saved the band. Um, he was the most important agent at the time, and a good friend of mine. I had hired him for the Jukes, and he was a guy with real juice. I mean, he was the real thing.
Mm.
And I got him to, like I said, you gotta sign Bruce, please. You know, we're in big trouble here. You know, I mean, and he did, and he loaned him money. You know, and suddenly we're playing. You know, whatever. We started to play arenas. You know, they were mostly empty, but at least we were working. And so suddenly, the thought of actually making it, and like I say, and crossing that line from a bar band to being a rock star, a successful rock artist, that was the biggest moment, and that's when it started to feel like that. It started like, okay, we got something going here now, and we're growing, and this audience is growing in spite of the fact we're getting no airplay, none. Uh, less airplay on Darkness than Born to Run,
Mhm.
and there was it was kind of like over. People were feeling like, the moment came and went. He's in the middle of that lawsuit and whatever. But suddenly, it's starting to feel like we don't. It doesn't matter how many people are in the audience anymore. It doesn't matter anymore. We're doing something that feels special.
Mm.
Uh, you know, I mean, his writing, took a turn, at that point, and he really. I talk about this at great length, but he made the major personality, the identity change from Born to Run to Darkness. And the way I put it is, he went from leaving town on Born to Run to
Mm.
deciding to stay on Darkness.
Ah,
Okay,
wow. Mm.
and that moment of you know fighting with your father to becoming your father, you know,
Mm.
you know, you know,
Mhm.
or to at least speaking on his behalf, that was a radical, courageous move he made. Uh, you're taking a big chance. You spend your life in show business hoping an audience finds you, you know, and when they do, man, you got to stick to it. They
Mhm.
find you and they define you at that point.
Mhm.
So for him to completely say, "Well, I'm glad you fell in love with this character I created for Born to Run, but that's not me. I'm sorry."
Right.
So,
Right. Mm.
with your permission, I'm going to go this other way, and I hope you
Mhm.
can take the trip with me.
Right.
And his writing was so good, in spite of the, how I've talked about many times how I felt about the production of the album, which is just a shame. But
Mm.
but um, but the writing was so good it transcended the terrible production. You know,
Mm.
and some of his greatest material that was the bulk of the live show forever.
Mhm.
You know, um, and that was so strong live. We hadn't captured it yet on record. We would do that on the river.
Right.
Um, but it was so strong live that you didn't need to hear it on the radio anymore. You didn't need to know the songs. You didn't need the usual rules that should apply, you know, to a
Mhm.
successful act. And this was Frank Barcelona's genius.
Mhm.
He's the one
Mhm.
who said the most important thing for a band is to be great live.
Right.
No, that sounds obvious now, doesn't it? But it
Mhm.
wasn't then. There was no such thing. You had a hit on the radio, and then you toured. You know,
Mhm.
that's how everybody did it. There was no such thing. And he proved it with us. He proved it with Led Zeppelin. He proved it with the Who.
Mhm.
None of whom had hit singles. Were known for their hit singles. Uh,
Right.
you know, you know. Anyway, so we fit very well into that Frank Barcelona philosophy, which was also the kind of way we felt. We weren't quite fitting in to what was going on, so we had to pull the audience to us. And Bruce had that uncompromising attitude right from the beginning, and it was, I mean, courageous in one way, but in another way, that's just the way he was. You know, that was just it was take it or leave it. You know, and we were all kind of strengthening each other, and me and him had done that from the beginning. You know,
Right.
our friendship had strengthened each other from the beginning, and that continued now with the whole E Street Band, basically saying, you know, we don't really care what people think anymore. You know,
Mhm.
we got something going here because we had enough knowledge of history, you know, to know that we were doing something special, and we had that very very high level of high standards that was born from living in a Renaissance period. I mean, you know, we couldn't have had higher standards. And in our minds, you know, at least in my mind, we you know we'll never get there. You know,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
I started Rolling Stones with Brian Jones. We'll never get there. You
Mhm.
know, I saw Jeff Beck with Rod Stewart. We'll never get there. You know, I mean, you know, I saw the Beatles. I mean, and so that keeps you reaching and going on stage, still trying to kind of prove yourself in to yourself in a way, to make sure you honor
Right.
that Renaissance that you grew up with, and show the gratitude, you know, that we grew up with. That keeps your standards very very high, and that was happening right there, and and the audience just started responding, and we ended up growing that audience without any airplay, and that's why all of a sudden when we did finally have a hit single on the river, boom,
Mhm.
it was immediately, whatever it was, went from, I don't know what, 600,000 records to 3 million or whatever the numbers were, you know, and barely, playing theaters and half empty halls to sold out arenas, um, because we kind of did it the right way. I mean, unfortunately, you can't do it that way anymore. The infrastructure is not there, you know, which I've been trying to rebuild for 20 years, but there's a lot of missing pieces still.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I started my radio network. That's why I started the record company. You know, trying to reestablish some kind of infrastructure for new bands. But it's just it's a whole different story now. But anyway, we were lucky at that time to have somebody like Frank, uh, who had proven himself, with the Who and and Led Zeppelin and others, to have him, bestow that energy that we needed at that time. So it was very important.
Well, I'm gonna finish up with two questions, which lead what you said. I'm gonna lead into this. So you've been one of Bruce's most trusted musical sounding boards. Can you remember a time when you strongly disagreed with him about a song or an arrangement, and which one of you ended up being right?
You know, all those outtakes from the River and Darkness.
The ones we
Tracks
just
just
got.
two. Tracks just
Everyone's a
two.
lost, everyone's a lost argument.
All
Okay.
right. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you got a good, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 examples right there, right?
I
Uh,
hope it.
and I'm not kidding.
I
All right.
believe you.
Those songs, like, are some of the greatest records ever made by anybody. And I'm surprised other people haven't picked up on it, to be honest. I mean, some of those songs are a career for another band.
Hmm.
And very very few of that, very little of that stuff has been covered, which is surprising to me. You know, because I mean, they're there for the taking, man. Grab them. you know, well, we there should have been an album in between the River and Darkness.
Hmm.
And and probably between Darkness and and USA. Probably
Hmm.
those it's probably missing
Right.
albums there. That
Yeah.
would have been interesting. But at that point he was just into something else. He was into making a statement. Very very being very careful about what he was talking about, and a lot of those songs ended up being very pop rock type songs. Not particularly personal. You know, typical pop rock songs, that were just fantastic. Which uh, so you know take your pick. I mean, Loose Ends, Restless Nights.
Restless Nights, right?
You know,
He
I mean,
jokes about it on stage when he says, "Oh, Stevie's favorite this, Stevie's favorite that," and I could tell that you probably had these arguments with him.
Yeah,
He might have been right after all.
Right.
Most nights.
I mean,
I think Stevie was right.
listen to Restless Nights. I mean, are you kidding me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not going to put that on the album?
Right.
I mean, Loose Ends, Loose Ends. You know, I mean, I used it as the last song I used in Lilyhammer.
That's
Oh,
right.
right. That's right.
Yeah. So it got used. And I
So
should have used Restless Nights, which I don't think I did.
the-
But anyway, so there's just an endless amount of
great answer.
you know.
So my last question is, it's actually a funny one because back in 2016, you guys, you were already doing long shows, okay? And then all of a sudden in 2016, I mean, more so than that, you were doing like 4 hours shows. And I remember we had this discussion with Gary Talent and it was just, what was the feeling? What were you feeling like every night going out there 4 hours? And did you like say this is over? This is too much, Bruce. I remember you saying one time, actually reading it in the book, where in your book you were saying you couldn't bend your strings anymore
Oh,
because,
yeah. Well, yeah. It just got crazy when you get to that 4 hour point. We're going like 4.5. I don't know what it was.
yeah.
Yeah, he came over to me at the end of one of those shows, and he's like, I can't bend the strings anymore. I said, don't tell me, tell the fucking boss. What are you complaining to me for? I can't bend them either. I mean, it's amazing. There is a point where your body is like,
Yeah.
enough,
So, but
enough.
you're telling Bruce, did you ever say that Bruce, like 4 hours is like, what the hell? Why are we doing this? And
It
he
just got
this is something
ridiculous. It got ridiculous. I mean,
all
it just,
right.
you know.
I mean,
Yeah,
not that we were complaining, but
well, that's part of the problem. People like writing, telling them how great the show was, and longer. I want to kill you.
I know. We get
But
that a lot.
yeah, look, what happened? Look, it was kind of inevitable when you start having that many good songs, and having a good time, and
Yeah, I hear you.
that was life. I mean, when you don't have a whole lot of life off the stage, you know what I mean. You don't have enough life off stage,
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden, the stage becomes your whole life, and that can happen. As much as you love playing, there's a certain point where, it's just too much.
I hear you. Well, I had one little thing regarding Teach Rock, and I want to just discuss this, make sure it doesn't get lost because it's such an important, and we have, I'm reading the comments here, and we have so many teachers that are in our group and obviously in the world of music. So, I would like to talk a little bit about Teach Rock, and then one comment said you said that rock and roll is more about more than music, and it's a culture and a way of looking at the world. So, what do you think rock and roll still has to offer and to teach younger generations?
Well, it's art in general is its own reward, first of all.
Mm,
And every speech I've ever given, I'm basically saying, work on the craft, take care of the craft, and the art takes care of itself. Um, you know, and that's true in any craft.
hmm
Certainly in art, um, you want to learn about yourself. And then you want to try and do something that's useful. And that's why one of my main purposes, one of my main goals of writing my book was make sure it's useful. You know,
hmm
I've been I've done a little bit in a lot of different crafts, and I want to share that stuff and maybe make it a little bit easier for the next guy. Um, the trouble now, we got a really strange period of time now as
Mm.
far as what's being said. You know,
Right.
we're in the most crazy time I've ever seen, and I think we will ever see. And it's so crazy. We all, you know me, I will talk about anything always. Um, and this really we can't even talk about. Uh, for the first time in my life, I'm seeing extremely dangerous trends going on,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't talk about them. Because I would be canceled and never work again. You know, uh, because for the first time in my life, there's a very strong current of what young people are saying and thinking, and what everybody's saying and thinking, uh, and it's just wrong. And I've never seen that before. We grew up in the '60s, and there's always protests. There's protests
Mm-hmm.
for years and years and years. Yeah, it's always on the right side.
Mm-hmm.
Vietnam, women's rights, South Africa, gay rights, you name it, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, for the first time, I'm seeing protests that are just completely ignorant and manipulated, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a very, 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 very dangerous time. I'm not going to say anything further, but
Right.
um,
I get it.
so 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 I think we have to try and stay on the common ground if we can. We're always struggling to do that. I think it's more of a struggle now. If you're going to say something meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
that's what my Summer of Sorcery record with a lot. I mean, the song Communion that's what it's about,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
let's try and find some common ground between us, because the right wing is going crazy to the right, the left's going crazy to the left,
Mm-hmm.
and there doesn't seem to be anything in between anymore.
Yeah.
I've never seen it like this, not like this.
Oh, I hear you.
So when it comes to the purpose of rock and roll, I mean, I have to say it's the same purpose of any art in terms of trying to illuminate the world, make life a little bit, explain what life's about a little bit, and find yourself. It's a good way to do that. And again, and try and stay on the common ground if we can, and bring people together. I mean, that's the most useful use of rock and roll, and most useful work, of art. And we try and do that with our education curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Has nothing to do with politics whatsoever.
Right.
You know, our thing is, teaching kids how to think,
That's my
what,
favorite.
as much as what to think.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and that's something that we can, I think it's quite useful. You know, we hit 1 million students now.
Wow.
We got 49 million more to go, but can you imagine the challenge these teachers have walking into a class every day, and they're looking out at kids who have every answer they need in their pocket,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
they got all the answers, okay?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so what they don't have, and what we provide, is the questions,
Mm-hmm.
the right questions. You know, that's what we're all about. You know, and it's the questions that have to do not just with getting them through school, but getting them through life. You know, that's what we do, and quite proud of what we've done so far, um, we just had the other night had terrific successful fundraiser. Rod Stewart,
Yeah.
so kind to do that for us, and I hope he's okay. He had a little incident I just read today. He's in the hospital with a little bit of a thing, so
Yeah.
I hope it's nothing. We need him around. He's just such a legendary cat, and
Mm-hmm.
did us such a righteous thing for us from to do. He didn't have to do that. We're not we weren't friends. You know, I hadn't said two sentences to him in 50 years. You know,
Yeah.
Wow.
so I mean, he just you know, him and his wife decided to choose our you know, our charity as their one charity thing this year.
Wow.
Uh,
Well, it's amazing. It's an
yeah,
amazing idea. It's been just incredible to even be a small part of it. You know, it's a great idea. There's nothing else you can say. It's just what we need.
yeah, yeah. Thankfully, I mean, you know, the kids may have stopped buying music, but luckily they still are into music. So, you know,
Right.
we use music basically as a way of teaching every single, you know, class, every subject, you know,
It
and
sure would have worked for all of us, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, that's what I mean. It's such easy common ground. I don't know why, you know, nobody really thought of it before, but um,
We had multiplication rock, remember? Think of eight as double fours. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody got into that because it was
Mhm.
music.
yeah,
Mhm.
there you go. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I think Sesame Street was way ahead of us there, you know.
Right.
But
Well, I got
anyway,
to tell you, it's something that you know, speaking for the group, is that it's not just that you're involved in it and what it, we truly believe in the mission of, especially, and I said this many times already, especially today, because it's so important. What you just said, you know, about how the world is and how everyone is just, I mean, it's just times we've just never seen before, and how, and more importantly, is what the kid, you know, the children are going to grow up because they don't have the right, you know, direction and not the right learning skills, and teach rock is so important, and it's something that, you know, like I said, me and Jules and the group are always going to be behind, because I think it's one of the most important foundations that are out there today, and teach rock is doing an incredible job. I'm so proud to be part of that, of teacher, you know, of the teach rock mission.
yeah, thank you. You know,
Amen.
you know, we
Well,
you know, the more it's a little frustrating. You know, we can only go spread it so quickly. It depends on you know, what comes in that year, but
Mm.
I'm hoping at some point, you know, there's a thousand, how many billionaires in America, right? Thousand,
mhm.
1,500, whatever the number is, you know.
Yeah,
All we need is one, okay?
yeah.
You know, to like see what we're doing, realize that we are doing something very special, and hit us with that $100 million endowment, you know,
Hmm.
so that we know that we're going to be there forever and live off that interest, you know, as a solid base, you know. That's all, you know, and I'm hoping that happens
Yes.
because you know it's such a struggle every year, you know, doing everything we can, you know, and of course, you know, Bruce has been so generous, allowing me to do the fundraising on tour, you know,
Hmm.
and that's where, you know, a lot of our money comes from. So when we're not touring, you know, thank goodness for Rod Stewart and you know, whoever else is going to help us. But it would be nice to have that $4 or $5 million base on the interest on the 100 million. You know what I mean? You know,
Hmm.
just to kind of like be a solid ground and then go from there because we can only expand as fast as the money comes in. You know.
Well, thank you. I'm going to hand it over to Stan. I know he has a couple of questions for you as well.
Steve, first I admire your background. It doesn't look like you're in New York City anymore, and there's airplanes been flying over your head, which is pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, this is we're returning to our roots here.
Good.
Monmouth County.
Yeah.
You answered my question about Rod Stewart. I was going to ask if you had ever played with him before, and you ended up playing with him, what, twice in 3 nights at Jones Beach also. So is that a thrill for you, or Rod Stewart? You mentioned the Faces earlier, just to be on stage with him.
It was thrilling, thrilling. I mean, you know, we just had some fun at the fundraiser, but then he says, you got to come to Jones Beach, you know. And I'm like, well, what am I gonna do? Say no? Yeah, you know, of course I'll come, you know. And it's just thrilling. I mean, you know, the I'm not kidding. The Faces at that time were one of the greatest bands of all time, and you know, and Rod's. I mean, I talked about this on the radio show. I don't know if it's in the book or not, but Rod had like 6 albums in like 3 years. You know, the two Jeff Beck albums, you know, 3 solo albums and 2 or 3 albums with the Faces. You know, it's like 8 albums in 4 years or something. You know, and they're all amazing. They're amazing. Just this burst of of productivity there. And he just his catalog is quite amazing. Amazing.
Steve, I laughed out loud. I was rereading the book, obviously, but you're talking about Rod Stewart, and you saw a magazine, or somebody saw a magazine with Rod's picture in it, and nobody had ever seen him before. And
Yeah.
somebody bust in the door, and was like, "Rod Stewart's white," and you're like, "What? Get out of here!"
Yeah, get the fuck out of here. But that's the print in the magazine. We didn't believe he was white. We didn't believe he was white till I saw him at the Fillmore with Jeff Beck. Honestly, we've never heard anybody sing like that.
The Blue-Eyed Soul.
Just the most amazing white soul singer. And it sounds funny, but one of his great credits is he made Sam Cooke hip. Okay, and he wasn't. Okay, I mean, when we grew up, it was part of our parents' generation. Kind of, it was like one step away from Perry Como, or I mean, You Send Me, was not cool, and then so suddenly Rod, obviously, who does he sound like? He sounds, like exactly like Sam Cooke. And all of a sudden, went back and re-examined Sam Cooke's catalog, and I went all the way back to the gospel stuff, and it was suddenly like, holy shit, this is, arguably either him or David Ruffin, the greatest singer of all time. Pretty obviously, and I wouldn't have done that, and it wasn't just me, I'm sure, but we wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for Rod really, selling that particular individual, just like the British invasion in general turned us on to everybody. I never heard of Chuck Berry. Why would I? I never heard of Muddy Waters.
Wow.
I never heard of Little Richard. Why would I? Until the British people told us about those people.
And then you guys did so many covers, and that turned all of us on to all of this other stuff that we never heard of.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's finite, unfortunately. The Renaissance is finite at this point.
Yeah.
It's those 30 years, whatever, and it ain't gonna happen again for another couple hundred years. So I mean, anything you go back and look at right now is going to be rewarding, because it's just the talent was ridiculous. What was going on back then. But Rod's completely responsible for making Sam Cooke cool. I mean, it was just like, and now, obviously one of my favorite singers. I mean, I have, I don't know, half a dozen songs that are, basically inspired by Sam Cooke.
That voice.
Yeah. So, that's,
My last question is just, let's promo an event you got coming up at the new Bruce Springsteen Center for American Music. They're going to show the documentary about the making of Sun City September 1st. So that will be exciting to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of Sun City activity. I guess it must be. Is it an anniversary? I guess it is. I don't know. Is it
40 years?
Yeah. I don't know if it was this year or last year, but anyway, there seems to be a lot of activity around it. Several new documentaries being made, and we'll see what else. But yeah, that's going to be that should be good. Yeah. Then we got the big Teach Rock fundraiser coming. What's she hearing? Oh, the bug by the plane. It's just a plane.
What was it like making Sun City, just in general, getting all those artists together?
Oh man, hard to believe that it got done. Honestly, looking back on it now, I mean, I was one of those that never wanted to meet my heroes. You know,
Mm.
I think you may read the part in my book where
Yeah.
Freddie King
Mm-hmm.
put a gun on me. Yeah, yeah. Uh, so after that, I never wanted to meet any of my heroes, and ironically, I ended up producing 50 of them.
Mm.
Um, it was just a moment in time, and the four of us. It was really the four musketeers on that one. All four of us absolutely essential. Me, Arthur Baker, Arthur Baker's studio,
Mm.
his engineers, half of his phone book. Um, Danny Schechter basically publicizing it, and Hart Perry filming it.
Mm.
And we didn't know, we weren't organized like Quincy Jones or Geldof. People just came in when they felt like it, and we would have them sing the whole song. Which I want to go back and look at those tapes and see if I can find some of those. It might be interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, so we weren't sure how many we were going to end up with. I wanted to try and get one person from every genre if I could, and we just ended up with 50, and it was just going to be a single. But then Miles Davis comes in, which blew everybody's mind because he doesn't do those kind of things, and he said, This is the one I want to do." And so I had him play. We had like a log drum that everybody kind of played to, and and I had it in my mind. You're gonna play in the beginning of the song, in the intro, and then play again in the middle. Right around where the rap guys were. And so he plays for like 3-4 minutes. And then he plays again with the mute. I said play with and so there we are. I'm gonna well, take it easy. Take it easy. Oh.
Mm.
Anyway, we'll see if she starts going crazy. Um,
Mm.
and I said, you know what? Well, I'm using Miles for 30 seconds. I'm not leaving 4 minutes on the fucking floor. I mean, are you
Mm.
nuts? Right?
Wow.
So we call, we put together most of one of his famous, quintets, called Ron Carter and Tony Williams, and, um, um, my name tonight. The great piano player. I'll think of it in a minute. I'll think of it in a second. Herbie Hancock. Herbie Hancock.
Ah,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And they played to Miles. So suddenly there was another song, and the rappers came in, and again, they 15 seconds at the beginning, and then we said, while you're here, go express whatever you feel like saying. Melly Mel goes in the other room, comes back 20 minutes with that great rap,
mhm.
and Arthur puts together this kind of montage thing, and suddenly there's another song, you know. Peter Gabriel comes in and starts just chanting this crazy chant thing
Mm.
against the log drum.
Mhm.
Overnight, everybody's, half the guys, doing cocaine and whatever. They're up all night, so they decide to put drums on it, and then, and then they put a keyboard on it. And then I came in the next day and I put a guitar on it, and that's another song. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden, it became the most organic album ever created. Uh, Completely legitimate, artistically or legitimate. And so it just kind of grew naturally into its own album, and
Amazing.
quite proud of it really, because it's really, it
Oh,
holds
you should be.
artistically, uh, aside from the fact that it was completely successful, which is very rare, as you know, in international liberation politics. I mean, you don't get a win like that very often. So
How many protest songs has a dance version to it? I mean, so I know there's a dance version to it, but it's a great song.
Yeah.
I want to hand it over to close it out, and we're gonna finish. And I want to thank you for your time, but we're gonna hand it out to the best. Julie is gonna close out this.
All right.
Yeah, so we're gonna call this the lightning round, Stevie.
You're
Okay.
gonna love this.
All right, come on. I got some softballs here. Don't worry. Okay. Sauce or gravy?
Sorry. Wait. Better? Okay. Sorry. One more time.
Sauce or gravy?
Gravy.
Which one? Okay. That works. Pasta? Pasta or macaroni?
Pasta.
Really? I'm a little surprised about that one. All right, here's a big one. New Jersey or New York City?
What are you asking?
New Jersey now.
Yes.
Okay, coffee or tea?
It depends, you know.
Really?
Mostly coffee these days.
All right, all right.
But
All right.
for many years I was just green tea.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I should go back to that. It's healthier.
Yeah, supposedly. Favorite pizza topping?
Oh. You know, you go through these phases, you know. I don't know. Lately I'm into sausage, I think. I do occasionally do the infame, you know, I do the criminal pizza, which everybody is
No.
flabbergasted about.
No, pineapple?
Criminal pizza.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
Sausage and pineapple.
Oh,
It's
well,
it's,
I get that. It's the
fantastic.
salty, it's the sweet. Yeah.
That's it. It's the yin and yang of it, you know. So I do occasionally like that, but most importantly, it's got to be thin and it's got to be crispy.
Yes.
Okay, and then nobody does it that way. It's very hard to find.
You
Okay,
have
when
to-
when
you
you
have
hold
to
up a slice
try.
of pizza, you hold up a slice of pizza, it should stand up. Okay, it shouldn't like droop. Okay,
Yeah.
it should stand up. Okay, you know, and it's hard to find. It's hard to find.
Well, I'll just give you a little tip. If you're ever in Westchester near Mount Vernon, check out Johnny's on Gramerton Avenue. It's the best pizza ever, and it's so thin. It's like thinner than matzah. It's amazing.
Worth the trip just for that alone.
Okay, is there a song you wish you had written?
Oh man, kidding me? Where you want to start?
Whichever one comes to your mind first.
MacArthur Park comes to mind.
Wow. I love that song. Donna Summer.
Donna Summer. Donna Summer. Richard Harris.
Richard Harris, Jimmy Webb. Yes.
I was so proud of Jimmy Webb, you know, on that first Darlene album. He's one of the phone calls I made. And he hadn't written for anybody in decades.
Hmm.
And he wrote for her, and he says, "What do you want?" I said, "No, nothing big. Just another one of those MacArthur Parks, you know." So, but that's certainly one of them. I don't know.
All right, I got more. Don't worry. Beach or mountains?
Oh, beach.
Hmm.
That's not a close call.
Mhm.
All right, this one's probably going to destroy you, but Beatles or Stones?
I can't answer that.
They're inseparable. You
I
can't.
always
you
combine
can't-
them. I always combine them, as you know. The Beatles revealed a new world to us.
Mhm.
The Rolling Stones invited us in.
Yeah.
Both great.
Okay.
I can't choose.
Okay.
All right, this one might destroy me. Is it waves or is it sways?
Oh, wait.
I never understood that controversy. I mean, I guess they put the wrong word on the album, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that what it
Well,
was?
Yeah.
that's not my personal opinion, but okay.
It was always Swayze.
Yes.
And
Oh,
Good night, Charlie.
somebody get the knife out of me.
well, Waves doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's on the album, Stevie. That's what we sing.
It's
That's
a,
what
it,
it is.
it's fascinating because they were so meticulous about everything.
Right.
They checked that thing 100 times,
Exactly.
and they had that, and they had John Landau's name spelled wrong.
Yeah.
You
Put
know,
the sticker on 1,000 albums.
you got, you got,
Go
so,
figure.
anyway, yeah.
Okay. What's the most Jersey thing you've ever done?
Jeez, Jersey thing I've ever done.
All right. We'll circle back to that.
Yeah, I don't know what that means. Go ahead.
All right. This one's probably going to destroy you also. You got 3 albums on your desert island. What are they? I don't think I could pick.
I hate this question. Let's go with. I mean, I'll give you a different answer every 15 minutes on this one.
Right.
The Temptations' greatest hits, Revolver, and 12 by 5.
Nice.
Wow. Nice. Interesting. Okay. What is the best thing about New Jersey?
At this point, the fact that it's not New York.
I knew it.
I love you, Stevie.
Yeah.
Let me not go into any further detail.
Right.
Yes.
Well,
You don't have to.
none necessary.
All right, here's a good one. If you could go back and be at any concert in history, which one would you pick?
Hmm. Gotta be Bob Dylan with the Hawks.
Yeah.
Wow.
I miss, that's a legendary. Yeah.
Wait, where was that
Oh,
concert?
they toured all over the place, but
Yeah. Forest Park, Forest Hills.
Maureen actually
Oh,
was
really?
there. Maureen saw them Newark, I think.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was a big one. That one, and there was like 3 gigs when both Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page were in the Yardbirds.
Oh, wow.
I'd like to have seen that one too.
Huh. Yeah, that must have been insane.
Yeah, I mean, this was like just for 5 minutes. It didn't last long.
All right, last one. Best piece of advice you ever got?
Well, my father said, "You're gonna do something, do it right."
Hmm. I like that.
And I've tried to live up to that.
You have succeeded.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's so tempting, and I've many times, I've failed to. You start something, and you don't finish it. I've done that several, and I always regret it. I always regret it. You know, I mean, we signed Darlene Love to Columbia Records. You know, 72-year-old woman at the time,
Hmm.
making a debut album to one of the biggest record labels in the world.
Amazing.
And I thought this is the perfect ending of 20 Feet from Stardom.
Yeah.
The film
Yeah,
about
Yep.
the background singers and
Yep.
love that film.
largely tragic. Well, here's the happy ending to 20 Feet from Stardom, because this album is obviously going to win Album of the Year. There was no doubt in my mind, that it was the best album of the year, and I think that's still obvious. All right, and so I'm hanging in there. She didn't have a great manager, and You know, they were going to make the video, and the video concept was terrible. So I fixed the video and got all those people to participate in the video, you know, and then I got busy, you know, and I didn't go all the way with it, you know, and it never even got nominated, you know. So, you know, even at this stage of the game, you know, once in a while I'll start something, you know, and not finish it, and that's still a bad habit of mine,
Well,
because I really have, you know, my ADD is, you know, always there. You know, I'm constantly. I love starting things and getting them done and then moving on. You know, but it really is important to finish what you start, and I tell everybody that, you know, when I give a speech or something, and but I'm guilty of it now and then myself. You know, just not quite going all the way with something, and you got to do that. You got to do it.
yeah, well, we're all guilty of that. I think you made a deal with the devil because you got your finger in everything. It's amazing.
Well, you know, I try to make sure I'm giving 100%. You know, no matter how many things I'm into. Um, my brain just works in a weird way. I find it better when I'm doing more than one thing.
Hmm.
I tend to overwhelm things if I'm doing just one thing. You know, I kind of overdo it. So I like, you know, different parts of your brain doing different things. The first year of Lilyhammer, I came home every other week.
Hmm.
You know, so I'd be over there, you know, and I'm the only producer and writer on the set, as well as starring in the show. So you know, I'm doing all of that stuff, and you know, for a week, and I come home, and now I'm, you know, get the record company and the radio show and the publishing stuff and the, you know, the education stuff, you know, and a whole different part of your brain, you know, and then you go back over there and it's all acting and writing, and you know, and I just found it to be extremely effective
Hmm.
by giving that part of
Well,
your brain a break for a week and then going back to it. Everything was always new. You
Yeah.
know, whenever I went back to Norway, it was new again. Whenever I came home, it was new again. You know, so that can work for you. You know, if you don't get too schizophrenic. You know, so it's
well, one thing I gotta tell you, we had Anthony Almonte on last week before his show at the Wonder Bar, and he mentioned that how you participated on his album, and he was afraid to ask you, and it was on the tour, and he finally had the nerve to ask you, and during the one of the songs that Bruce was playing acoustic on the show, and when he says, we want you to feature on this one song, and you said, I'll do the whole album.
do
So,
whatever you want, whatever you want. You know.
right. So it's just like it's just a testament what you're saying is that you tend to put yourself fully into everything you do, and
Yeah.
that's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean,
Steve,
that was,
I have
you know.
one. Sorry,
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, good.
no, Steve, my last comment to you was Maureen was nice enough, kind enough to come on with us earlier this year. Very elegant, classy, uh, intelligent lady.
You
I
love
love the fact that you are the only couple ever in the history of the world that had and can ever have at your wedding. You had Richard Penniman, Little
her.
Richard, as your officiant, Percy Sledge singing When a Man Loves a Woman, and the orchestra from The Godfather as the house band. I love that fact.
Doesn't everybody do that?
Yeah. Yeah. I
I
must,
thought
I must
everybody did that.
wish.
So I just wanted to say kudos to Maureen. She's a fantastic lady.
Yeah, you gotta wonder what she's doing with me, right? Gotta wonder. You gotta wonder.
The power couple.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna close by I'm just gonna listen. I gotta ask the question because are we gonna see either Disciple of Souls or E Street Band or Stevie on the road this soon?
Oh, I don't think so. And you know the one thing about about Bruce, you never know.
Right.
Uh,
I hear
there was no tour booked this year either, but we did one.
you. I almost screwed up my serenade, but okay.
I mean, that was the most remarkable. I mean, it's like 6 weeks.
Mhm.
You know, that's impossible. It's
Yeah.
impossible to do that.
But,
Uh, George Travis is quite a wizard. But no, at the moment there's nothing planned, and
Okay. Just throw it out there.
no, yeah, no. Disciples, I'd have to like win the lottery, to get them back on the road.
Well,
know.
we'll try, but
All right,
I'm
so we'll invite you over for Shabbat dinner one week. Okay.
all right. So
Right.
Stevie, on behalf of the Spring Nuts community, on behalf of Ryan and Stan and Julie and myself, I would, want to once again thank you for your incredible support, both to you and Maureen, who we love dearly, not just for coming on the show tonight, but for being there for the group, for Julie and I personally, for always having our backs and standing up for us, for you and Maureen's friendship, and for showing up at this year's Serenade, which was a huge highlight for us. I can't begin to tell you, for all the years of the entertainment and music, and obviously for Teach Rock, and most of all, for the East Street, speaking for the East Street universe, and once again for Spring Nuts, for always being a true mensch, Stevie, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for everything you have done for us.
No, our pleasure. And it's really you guys' enthusiasm. It's full circle. It's a mutual energy exchange, man. Don't forget that. Without your guys' enthusiasm, what are we doing, right? So, you guys matter just as much for your enthusiasm and your supporting us. So, I can speak on behalf of the East Street Band and everybody else I'm involved with. That we owe you our gratitude also.
Thank you, Stevie.
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
wish
Thanks,
give our
Steve.
regards, give our love to Maureen, and thank you, Sammy, and for the I forgot Tiggy. Sorry, I knew I was gonna get it. And Tiggy for being so patient tonight while I took your papa
Almost
away
made
from
it.
you.
We almost made it.
And we were good. Thank you so much,
All right.
Stevie. Have
Thank
a
you,
great
Steve.
night.
Thank
We
you.
love you,
Steve.
Stevie.
We
Thank
love
you.
you.